Alright, what's up everyone? Welcome back with me Nathan, and in this video we are going to talk about a term that has been gathering popularity recently in the world of software development, which is vibe coding. And if you didn't know already, vibe coding is a term defined by Andrej Karpathy, who is previously a director of AI at Tesla and a part of the founding team at OpenAI, and currently building whatever this is. It's a school that is AI native. So this is the tweet that started it all. There is a new kind of coding I call vibe coding, where you fully give in to the vibes, embrace exponentials, and forget that the code even exists. It's possible because the LLMs, e.g. Cursor Composer with Sonnet, are getting too good. Also, I just talked to Composer with Super Whisper, so I barely even touched the keyboard. I asked for the dumbest things like decrease the padding on the sidebar by half because I'm too lazy to find it. I accept all always. That means whatever the changes the AI give to him, he'll just run it. So yeah, I don't read the diffs anymore. When I get error messages, I just copy paste them in with no comment. Usually that fixes it. The code grows beyond my usual comprehension and I'll have to really read through it for a while. Sometimes the LLMs can't fix a bug, so I just work around it or ask for random changes until it goes away. It's not too bad for throwaway weekend projects, but still quite amusing. I'm building a project or web app, but it's not really coding. I just see stuff, say stuff, run stuff, and copy paste stuff, and it mostly works. Now, there are a few things that's wrong with this tweet that I found right away after reading it. The first is that he said that to forget that the code even exists up here. And then down here he said, I don't read the diffs anymore. But then of course after that he said, the code grows beyond my usual comprehension. I'll have to really read through it for a while. So which one is true here? I mean, like, do you forget that the code even exists and you don't even read it? Or now you're saying that you're reading it. So which one is it, right? And it's not too bad for throwaway weekend projects. I think I disagree with that, but I'll keep my comments for later because I want to show you a video. This video is posted by Y Combinator about 2 weeks ago. And if you didn't know already, Y Combinator is a venture capital firm that provide capital for promising young startups. The title of this video is Vibe Coding is the Future. So it seems that Y Combinator thinks that vibe coding is the way software is going to be built from now. And that's what we're going to find out. So let's see what they have to say.
It's like somebody dropped some giant beanstalk seeds at night. We woke up in the morning and there it is. Like, whoa,
what's going on? I mean, I think our sense right now is this isn't a fad. This isn't going away. This is actually the dominant way to code. And if you're not doing it, like, you might just be left behind.
Okay, like, vibe coding is a dominant way to code in the future. I don't think that's possible, you know. I mean, like, just imagine that your banking, your finance, and your tax apps created using vibe coding. I would probably uninstall those applications immediately. But we're just 20 seconds into the video, so let's just keep going.
Welcome back to another episode of The Light Cone. I'm Gary. This is Jared, Harj, and Diana, and we're partners at Y Combinator. Collectively, we've funded companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars right when it was just an idea and a few people. So today we're talking about vibe coding, which is from a Andrej Karpathy post that went viral recently. There's a new kind of coding I call vibe coding, where you fully give in to the vibes, embrace exponentials, and forget that the code even exists.
Yeah, so we surveyed the founders in the current YC batch to get their take on vibe coding. And we essentially asked them a bunch of questions. We asked them, what tools are you using? How has your workflows changed? And sort of generally, where do you think the future of software engineering is going, and how will the role of software engineer change as we get into a world of vibe coding? And we got some pretty interesting responses. Anyone have any favorite quotes that jumped out from the founders?
I think one of them that I can read verbatim is, I think the role of software engineer will transition to product engineer. Human taste is now more important than ever as code gen tools make everyone a 10x.
Hold up there. CodeGen tools make everyone a 10x engineer. I just don't think it's possible. Let me explain to you a bit. So, LLMs, right? Behind the CodeGen tools they're talking about, which is Cursor and Sonnet, the main engine that writes the code is LLMs, right? LLM's ability to code is derived or obtained from their training data. And the training data from LLMs, where do they get the training data? Well, obviously, the internet. So, probably Google search. I have some experience with SEO, and I think for the coding part, they could find the keywords that are being searched the most in Google. What are the most asked questions for coding in Google? So they could use Google search, maybe scrape the top 3 answers. And then of course, Stack Overflow, and then GitHub. So the LLM's ability to code is based on its training data. And now we are going to talk a bit about the amount of code that's available on the internet. You can probably split the coding data on the internet on 3 levels. The first one is beginner level. The second one is the intermediate level. And the third one is expert level. When we talk about the internet, I think most of the content that revolves around code will look similar to this. You will have lots of beginner content, that's FreeCodeCamp and the Odin project and so on. And you will also have intermediate content, even though not as many as the beginner content. And then you will have very few expert level content. I mean, like, that's just the nature of the available data in the internet. When you think about it logically, the 10x engineer are probably those at this level. They are very skilled at this level. What the person is saying is that everyone, those from this level to this level, the software engineers, those that are beginners and intermediates, are immediately going to be here. They're going to be like the expert because of LLMs. I don't think that's possible, right? 10x engineers in this level solve things that are hard. The problems in this area have no recipes or templates. This is because the nature of the problem that they are solving will probably be very specific to the system that they are working on. For example, how to handle 100,000 users using your application all at once, at the same time. But for the beginner level and intermediate, the problems here still have templates or recipes. You can find the answer on Google search or Stack Overflow. That's why I think LLMs is very useful to replace Google search, Stack Overflow, or GitHub issues where you find other people who encounter the same error and then trying to fix it, just like you. But this level, I don't think just because of using LLMs you can get to this level from here. But then again, I'm just an average software developer, so what do I know? Let's just continue the video.
Engineer. That's from the founder of Outlet.
I got one. Abi from Astra said, "I don't write code much. I just think and review."
Alright, this is subjective, but I think it's a terrible experience because writing code is actually the fun part of software development. It's like solving a puzzle piece by piece. When you eliminate that process and simply think about what you want and then ask AI to generate it for you, it takes away the joy of building software. But I get that some people don't really want to code, just like how some people don't want to write but would love to have a book with their name as the author. So if your goal is just to get results quickly, then good for you. But for those who enjoy the craft, it feels like skipping the best part of the journey.
There's another quote from a different Arby from Copycat, who said I am far less attached to my code now, so my decisions on whether we decide to scrap or refactor code are less biased. Since I can code 3 times as fast, it's easy for me to scrap and
I don't really feel this way, but I understand that some people do. When they see the code they wrote, it might remind them of the hard work they put in, especially if they solved a tough problem. So deleting it might feel like throwing away all that effort. But for me, I don't really get attached to my code. Most of the time, code changes to fit what the software needs. It's kind of like kids growing up. They won't stay the same forever, and at some point the old code just isn't needed anymore. I think you just need to change your mindset. Rather than looking at the past, focus on the future and how the change will help make things better. Instead of feeling like your hard work is being erased, think of it as a step forward.
Rewrite if I need to.
And then I guess the really cool thing about this stuff is it actually parallelizes really well. So Yoav from K60, he says, I write everything with cursor. Sometimes I even have 2 windows of cursor open in parallel, and I prompt them on 2 different features.
This feature is interesting because it lets you to multitask. But will it work if the 2 features are connected? I haven't tried cursor yet, but I'm wondering if one window can share its context with another. I mean, if that's possible, it could be really useful. But again, if the AI makes a mistake, it might create an even bigger mess. Multitasking is never good for humans because switching between tasks will cause you to lose focus. I assume the same applies to AI as well. If it tries to handle too many things at once, it might get confused by the huge context of the project that we are working on, which leads to mistakes. I think I'll try this one later and see for myself.
Features. Which makes sense. Why not 3? You know, you
Exactly.
could do a lot, actually.
And I think another one that's great is from the founder of TrainLoop. He mentions how coding has changed 6 to 1 month ago. 10x speed up 1 month ago to now is 100x speed up, exponential acceleration.
And he says, I'm no longer an engineer, I'm a product person.
I don't use AI for coding that much, but from my experience, it doesn't seem to be all that different. From GPT-3, GPT-4, and now GPT-4.5, I watched some videos about GPT-4.5, which came out a few weeks ago, and it doesn't look that impressive. If a 100x speed up in coding were real, we'll definitely be seeing tons of videos showing how much AI has improved. There is no way something that big would go unnoticed. So I think we need more evidence before believing this quote.
Oh, and interestingly, I guess one thing the survey did indicate is that this stuff is terrible at debugging.
Yeah.
And so the humans have to do the debugging still. They have.
So AI is very good at writing code that it can speed you up by 100 times, but it's bad at debugging. Isn't that nice? Writing code is fun, but debugging not so much because it's like trying to find a pearl in a sea of mud. If there's one thing I want AI to do, it's to help me debug the code, not writing it. It's like what this author called Joanna said. You know what's the biggest problem with pushing all things AI? Wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. It's the same thing with software development. I want to write the code and I want AI to debug it, not the other way around.
You have to figure out, well, what is the code actually doing? Here's a bug. Where's, spot the bug. Where's the code path that, we have some, logic error, just didn't figure this out, right? There doesn't seem to be a way to just tell it debug. You were saying that you have to be very explicit, like as if giving instructions to a first-time software engineer.
You need to give a very explicit instructions to debug, just like to a first-time software engineer. I think if that is the case, then it's probably going to be faster if I'm just debugging it myself.
I have to really spoon feed it the instructions to get it to debug stuff, or you can kind of embrace the vibes. I'd say Andrei Karpathy style is just like ignore the bug and just like re-roll, just like tell it to try again from scratch. Like it's wild how your coding style changes when actually writing the code becomes 1,000x cheaper. Like as a human, you would never just like blow away something that you'd worked on for a long time and rewrite it from scratch because you had a bug.
Well, yeah, because throwing everything away just because of a bug is very inefficient. The people who write the code should understand how it works, and with enough effort, they should be able to fix it. Code isn't a random thing. It follows a system of input, process, and output. If the output is wrong, the mistake is likely somewhere between input and process, and you should be able to trace it back to find the source of the error. Imagine working on a project for 6 months and then throwing it all away just because of a bug. That will be unheard of because it just doesn't make sense.
You'd always fix the bug, but like for the LLM, if it can just like rewrite 1,000 lines of code in like 6 seconds, like
It doesn't cost
like,
anything.
why not? You know?
Yeah, I think as we mentioned a couple episodes ago, we already saw this in the shift started happening. The Vive started to shift back in summer 24 when Cursor was being used by a big portion of the batch. And now, by far, is the leader. But the other thing that's happening, this is a very fast and moving environment. Windsurf is a fast follower. It's starting to be a very good product as opposed to Cursor. And I think, Jared, you have some first experience with why Windsurf is like better than Cursor.
Yeah, I think the number one reason that people are switching is that Cursor today largely needs to be told what files to look at in your code base. So if you have a large code base, you can tell what to do, but you have to tell it like where to look in the code base. Windsurf indexes your whole code base and is pretty good at figuring out what files to look at on its own. There's other differences too, but I think that's the most important one at the moment.
Notable, Devin does get mentioned, but the drawback of Devin not really being used for serious features is that it doesn't really understand the code base. It's being used mostly for small features and barely mentioned.
Yep. Anyone still remember Devin? It was supposed to replace software engineers, but now no one talks about it. People are using Cursor and Windsurf regularly, but Devin, the Y Combinator participants here, said that it really doesn't understand the code base. Completely irrelevant.
We think a lot of the discourse around sort of Gen Zs are the first digital native that grew up with the internet. This is like the generation that grew up with native AI coding tools, that they skip the classical training of a software engineer and they just do it with the Vive. But they are actually very tech.
One good thing about AI coding tools, if you can call it a good thing, is that they lower the barrier for people from different backgrounds to build their ideas. Before AI, it might take 3 to 5 years to become a software developer, but now it might be possible in just 1 to 2 years since AI can speed up the learning process if used correctly. But no matter how advanced AI gets, you still need a solid understanding of programming fundamentals to use it effectively. If you know the basics, you can spot when AI gives you the wrong answer. And that's a very important skill in today's world, to know when AI give the right answer or the wrong answer.
I think this vibe coding will enable people who have those kinds of technical minds, who come from other technical disciplines like math and physics, to become highly productive as programmers much faster than it was in the past. Like I remember they were like...
Yep, this is just what I touched previously. People from other backgrounds can now learn coding faster and they can become productive in less time.
And then there's nuance in what you just said, right? Like getting 0 to 1 quickly and then being able to scale to 1 billion users are two totally different sets. And then I think that might be irreplaceable for now around people. And one of the things I discovered as we were scaling one of the biggest Rails sites, I mean, you scaled one of the biggest Rails sites too, is that there aren't that many people who have to do it. Getting to 1 is so rare.
Yeah, that's true.
That, did you reach this point where how you got to 0 to 1 very quickly was like you used lots and lots of open source. And then at some point, like maybe 2 years into this, maybe 1.5 years into the startup even, we could not use random gems anymore.
Gems anymore because they were just never designed for companies at our scale.
Like,
and so we had to
deploy it and it fall
build
over.
our own stuff. Yeah,
it would just fall over, right?
So what they're saying is that AI is great for taking an idea and turning it into a working prototype. That way you can validate the idea and maybe even get early customers. But personally, I think building a working application isn't really the hard part. The real challenge is in maintaining and scaling that project. And unfortunately, AI isn't good at that. At least not yet.
I think maybe to summarize a bit more, 0 to 1 will be great for vibe coding where founders can ship features very quickly. But once they hit product market fit, they're still going to have a lot of really hardcore systems engineering. I think one key skill that's going to, remain, that's constant. I do think skills of reading code and debugging are maxim. It's like you have to have the taste and enough training to know.
Yeah, I agree with this one. And I've told you before, the skill of reading and debugging code will always be valuable no matter how advanced AI gets. So for those of you who ask, is learning the code still worth it in 2025? Yes. The answer is yes.
Know that the LLM is spitting bad stuff or good stuff. So like bad code or good. And I think you can see it clearly sometimes if a candidate is using the tools and there's actually a reasonable solution that the LLM outputs, and then the candidate is like, oh, this is actually bad. That is a sign. So I think knowing kind of more the higher level thinking to know what is good versus bad. In order to do good vibe coding, you still need to have the taste, and you still need that kind of classical train, maybe not necessarily classical train, but enough knowledge.
That's right. To do vibe coding really well, you still need to know how the code works.
But to be exceptional, like the top 1%, I think you're going to need to get into deliberate practice. I mean, the analogy we're talking about is Malcolm Gladwell popularized this concept of 10,000 hours of practice to become an expert, which came from this research from, what was his name?
Anders Ericsson.
Anders Ericsson, right? Which it wasn't just, the research was very specific. It was about how do you find world-class violinists? And it wasn't about just putting the time, but deliberate practice. It's like hours that are actually planned and thought, and it's hard work. You could become an expert with less hours. So I think what's happening with now CodeGen tools is that it's very cheap to put in the hours because the output is just so quickly. You can get to good enough. But to become the best in the world and the best founder, you're going to need that deliberate practice to go into the details. And you're going to have to peel the onion and understand the systems and get to, again, to some extent, being classically trained.
So what the host is saying is that AI can help you get started as a software developer, but to get really good, you have to practice and learn on your own. This makes sense because AI is limited by its training data, and as you know, the training data is from the internet. AI is great for basic tasks, but if you want to be an expert, you need to put in the effort, solve real problems, and learn from mistakes.
It sort of crept up on us, actually.
Yeah, it was like somebody dropped some like giant beanstalk seeds at night. We woke up in the morning and there it is like, whoa,
what's going on? So, I mean, I think our sense right now is this isn't a fad. This isn't going away. This is actually the dominant way to code. And
Alright, so that is the hook at the beginning of the video, and I think it's already over, right? Yeah, so this is just the outro. Well, vibe coding. My thoughts on it? Based on this video, I can see how vibe coding can be a fast way to turn an idea into an application. But to do it well, you still need to have the basic knowledge of how to program. If you have very little technical knowledge, then all you can do is give instructions to the AI, and when an error happens, you can do nothing but tell AI to fix it and make it go away. If we go back to the original tweet here, the author said that it's not too bad for throwaway weekend projects. Well, I disagree with that, and the reason is that when you sign up for a marathon, you don't really order a taxi to take you to the finish line. You run because you want the experience, the adrenaline, the challenge, and the fun, especially in a community marathon where it's more about enjoying the moment with friends. To me, throwaway weekend projects are just like that. There is no pressure, no deadlines, and no KPIs to achieve, so it's just pure fun. But if you let AI build the whole thing for you, you take away all the fun. You don't learn anything new, you don't get the dopamine rush from solving a problem, and you miss out on that aha moment when something finally clicks in your head. On top of that, you're also paying for AI services like GPT or Cloud Sonnet because these models aren't free. Except maybe if you use DeepSeek, then it's free. So if AI does all the work, what's even the point of doing these projects? You aren't even learning anything. And going back to the video, I think vibe coding is not really the future. I think this title is kind of clickbaity. I skipped parts of the video because it was too long, but the hosts themselves said that vibe coding is great only for turning an idea into a working version 1. But after that, you still need people who understand code and can build a system that scales. Building a startup with vibe coding can only take you so far, and it's not an efficient solution for the long term. At least not with the AI technology that we have today. So yeah, vibe coding is probably not the future, except for very early stage startup where the goal is only to validate the idea. But for established companies and growing startups, you still need people who know what they're doing. But will the future change when more intelligent LLMs model come around? Maybe. But maybe it will never happen. I mean, like, who knows? So that's my thoughts on vibe coding. For all of you software developers out there, no matter what happens, keep learning and smash that like button and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. You can also let me know what you think about vibe coding in the comments below. I will be there and reply as often as I can. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in other videos. Now, where was I? Alright. Hey Claude, build me the next Airbnb. And you, DeepSeek, build me the next Google. Yeah, make me rich.